This is 2A part 4. You've completed all the hard work for this APR calculator to calculate the APR, and now you've got to show the evidence. And if we look at the question carefully, it says that we need to include row and column headings when we print the formulae, and we need to print evidence of any named cells and ranges, and then show annotated evidence to explain any of the formulae and functions that were used. So first of all, let's have a look at the named ranges. If we go to formulas, then you'll see there's an option there called Name Manager, and what you can do is do a screenshot of this, but we need to make sure that we can see everything. So the important columns is the name column. This doesn't matter so much because the APR table will just go on forever and ever, so that's not so important, but this is important where it refers to, because that shows the cell references that it looks at. So you just do a screenshot of this area around here, and then you can put that and print that off in your work. Next thing that you've got to do is print the formulae and functions. Now, there's lots of different ways to show how to show the formulae, but one of the easiest ways under formulas, you've got there show formulas, and I'm going to have to make this a bit bigger now so that we can see what we need. Now we need to be able to see this cell here, and at the moment I can't make the columns wider, so I'm going to go to page layout, and I'm going to put that I want to view and print grid lines and headings, because that is going to, it's all about printing the grid lines and headings, but also it means that I'll be able to view this as well, and I can then change this until I can see that whole formula. Similarly here, I need to be able to see the whole function, and if you just double click at the top and in between, it will let you do that. What we can now do is look at printing this page, this worksheet. So if we go to print, you'll see that it automatically goes to portrait, and we've still got that fit sheet on one page. We can't really do that, so we're going to go to no scaling. Let's try changing it to landscape, because it might fit on a couple of pages then. Where you can see that's fitted on one page, and then we've got that bit and that bit there. Well, that's gone over 3 pages. That's not too bad. It gives us plenty of space to annotate these formulas and functions. And also, it does help your teacher and moderator if you identify what you've named these cells as. So I know you gave a screenshot, but it's going to help them if you identify. So if you just write in here, for example, by this one, write age. Write by this one, guarantor. And then your teacher knows that they're named cells. I'd even go as far as highlighting each one of them that's named with a coloured highlighter pen. And you might be thinking, why should I put in all this effort for my teacher and the moderator? Well, you don't want them to miss anything. And if they can find things quicker, then they're more likely to look for evidence in your work than to miss it. So it's best to help the teacher and help the moderator to find those marks for you. So you printed that one, and you're going to annotate everywhere to say exactly what the functional formula does. So when you annotate this one, for example, you're going to be writing about how it says, well, if a driving license type is 3, which is none, then it's going to display this message here, and you can use arrows. Otherwise, it's going to display this message here, and you just annotate to explain what it does. With this one, you can say if the driving license type is none, then 0 will be displayed because they're not eligible. Otherwise, then the age, which is from that cell there, is going to be looked up in the APR table on the other worksheet, and it will find the column number and return the value where the age and column number match. And then of course you do the same with these, and we then go to look at the other worksheet and how you're going to annotate that. The same process. We go to formulas and we go to show formulae. We can reduce some of this stuff because we don't need it as much, so it's taking up a lot more space than it needs to, this one here. But we do need to see all of these. Now if you've used one by one each of these, it's going to take up a lot of space going across the worksheet. So that's fine because you'll be printing several of them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assume at this moment that you've used this method rather than this method, because I can talk about this one on one worksheet. So again, we need to make sure that we're printing headings and printing grid lines. Well, the grid lines aren't as important as the headings. We'll go to landscape and see what we get, and go back to page 1. Page 2 has come up with this. What might help is if I change my margins to narrow, we might be able to get pages 1 and 2 on the same thing. We're not at the moment, so that's okay. We'll just adjust it a little bit. We want to try and get them both on the same page. So let's just reduce this bit even further. There we go. We've got rid of the dotted line there, and the dotted line's here now, so it's all on one page. That is just going to make it a little bit easier to annotate. So you'll print that off, highlight the fact that this was known as the column number, or of course if this one was your column number and you added them all up and got the sum at the end, then highlight what that was the column number. And then you need to annotate this. Now the best way of annotating this is probably to put the pseudocode alongside it, and then to put arrows explaining what the different parts of the pseudocode mean, and just a general sentence to explain that it's all about finding the column number based on the criteria. If you're annotating these parts here, then you'll have to annotate each one, so it's a little bit extra work to annotate them. And what you'll be doing is saying that this is an if statement, and it's looking for all of the criteria inside of AND to be met. So all those criteria have to be met. And the criteria are that the driving license type has to be full, which is 1. The employment risk has to be good. There has to be a guarantor, and the credit rating has to be greater than or equal to 3. And if all those criteria are met, it will display number 3, which is the column number 3. Otherwise, it's going to display 0. And you'll repeat that for each of them until eventually you get to the sum at the end, and then you'll need to explain why you've used the sum. Now if you have done this method, you'll need to widen each of these columns so that they can all be seen. And then you can just print it. And don't forget that annotation. Well done if you got this far. That was a really hard task. I'm afraid that the next part 2b, the first part of it's not too bad, but the part after that is a little tough as well. But if you've coped with this, I think you'll cope well with 2b.